All right, House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy and Republicans on the House Oversight Committee want to hold D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser accountable for abusing the levers of power during the pandemic and implementing policies that they believe are hurting the nation's capital. And I can attest to that. In a response, Mayor Bowser announced yesterday that she will allow her public health emergency declaration to expire today, which means no more vaccine passports, which was killing local restaurants, small businesses. Also, certain jurisdictions won't have to have masks in their buildings. Well, we never had them. Anyway, they were voluntary. But is this too little too late? Joining me now to talk about this is U.S. Congressman James Comer. He's the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee, which is the committee that has jurisdiction over the District of Columbia. He represents the 1st Congressional District of Kentucky. Congressman, welcome back to the program.
Thanks for having me on again.
Well, let's talk about the mayor's announcement yesterday. Is this reactionary? Is she finally seeing that she's moving in the opposite direction of the sane world?
Well, I think she's following the political science. That's what we've said all along, and they're just a little late to the curve. And what they've realized, in my opinion, the Democrat mayors have got a fresh batch of polling in that shows that even liberal Democrats are sick and tired of their mandates. They're sick and tired of wearing masks everywhere, having to whip out vaccine cards. Now, and then some hotels and restaurants were going a step further, saying you had to have a vaccine passport as well as a booster card. And it's just too much for the businesses. Every business realized that they're seeing a huge decline in their customer base. The airlines, every member of Congress will tell you, over the last 3 months, we're getting back to pandemic level attendance on these airlines because people are just saying, I'm not going to Washington, D.C. And it's not just the mandate. It's the crime in Washington, D.C. And this affects Congress because we want our constituents to come to Washington, and we want them to feel safe. Washington, D.C. should be the model of democracy, but it's not. You go to Washington, D.C., crime is up, homicides are up, shoplifting's up, carjacking's up. You're seeing more tent cities all over Washington, D.C. You can't take a cab from the airport to anywhere in Washington, D.C. without seeing all these homeless people and crimes and businesses boarded up. And enough is enough. And we're just trying to hold the mayor accountable. And I hope that we don't have to do it legislatively, but we're asking her to come before the Oversight Committee and explain to us what her plan is to reduce crime, to open businesses back up, and to get people to feel comfortable coming back to Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I see it every time I fly in and drive into the office. I mean, in fact, I was commenting to one of my members of the staff the other day. It reminded me of being in a third world country where up under every overpass, you've got these tent cities and such. But let me step back for just a second, Congressman. A little history lesson here of civics. The fact that Congress, the District of Columbia is a federal city. And up until, I think, 1973, Congress basically governed the city. Now, they have home rule charter where they're able to do their own thing, but it's not been working out. What might we expect in a new Congress that might be led by Republicans?
Well, we're going to expect to see Mayor Bowser be asked to come before the committee, and if she refuses to come, then we have subpoena power. Surely, to goodness, it won't come to that. The House of Representatives, specifically the House Oversight Committee, is supposed to be the check and balance over Washington, D.C. And prior to 73, Congress made most of the decisions for Washington, D.C. That changed, and, it's worked out fairly well, I guess, up until here in the last decade, and especially in the last 2 or 3 years. Crime's escalating. Businesses are in decline. People aren't feeling comfortable or welcome to come to their nation's capital to petition their government. That's a constitutional right of every American. But when you put it to where there's so many obstacles and rules and regulations to come to Washington, D.C., and then add to that the one of the highest crime rates in the world, then you've got a situation where somebody's got to step in and hold this mayor accountable. She's had policies of excessive criminal justice reform, bail reform. You have prosecutors who are not prosecuting. They're woke. They're not prosecuting. They're not doing their job. They've defunded the police. They've put every kind of gun control you could possibly put on a city in place. And as a result, you're seeing escalating crime with no end in sight.
And not to mention that the federal government pays a large part of the bill for the federal city, so there should be some voice into how the city's governed.
There is. We're going to have a lot of opportunity, hopefully, in a Republican majority, to enact a lot of reforms. I hate to have to waste time calling the mayor to come in to try to figure out how we solve the mess that she's created. But unfortunately, it's going to come to that. And that's going to be just something else that's going to be on our platter. We're going to give her an opportunity. I want her to be successful. I want Washington, D.C. to be a model city, a model for democracy. I want the planes to be full and the restaurants to be full and the hotels to be full. But what we've seen is a decline. And even when other cities have gone back to business as usual, even some of the Democrat cities that had pretty strict rules and regulations in place during the pandemic, Washington, D.C. has doubled down. They, still up until this week, mask mandates, vaccine passports. Children, even today, still have to wear masks. And you've got a school system that's not the model of public education in America in Washington, D.C., and the mask is only making it worse. The virtual learning only made it worse. So this is a city that is poorly run. Congress does have oversight over it. We're going to use our oversight. We're going to try to work with her to see that she can work with the local elected officials to turn things around. If not, then Congress is going to hold her accountable and try to make some decisions for her. And it's unfortunate to get like that. I'm for local control. I don't want to be a nanny committee, but it's not working out there, and it's just there's no end in sight to the problems in Washington, D.C.
Congressman Comer, I can say, as one who spends an awful lot of time in D.C., I am thankful that that day is coming where we can have some oversight. Congressman, always great to talk with you. Thanks so much for coming on today.